Senator Bernie Sanders just got some unlikely support. Now, this support comes from Asher Edelman, who was actually the inspiration for Gordon Gekko and Oliver Stone's movie Wall Street. Now, he was asked on CNBC's Fast Money who would be his choice for the next president of the United States. Let's listen to his answer.
Move on to the presidential elections. I'm curious, we're asking everybody essentially who you think the best candidate for the economy would be.
Bernie Sanders.
Without a doubt. Why is that?
No question.
Policies?
Well, I think it's quite simple again. If you look at something called velocity of money, you guys know what that is, I presume. Mm-hmm. That means how much gets spent and turns around. When you have the top 1% getting money, they spend 5-10% of what they earn. When you have the lower end of the economy getting money, they spend 100 or 110% of what they earn. As you've had a transfer of wealth to the top and a transfer of income to the top, you have a shrinking consumer base, basically, and you have a shrinking velocity of money. Mm-hmm. Bernie is the only person out there who I think is talking at all about both fiscal stimulation and banking rules that will get the banks to begin to generate lending again as opposed to speculation. Okay. So from an economic point of view, it's straightforward.
Damn, here you go, man. You have a Wall Street guy saying, look, from an economic point of view, Bernie Sanders, he's got the right policies. Now, notice how he said, look, we need rules, right? Banking rules that will get banks to begin generate lending again as opposed to speculation. Well, I think one of those rules would be Glass-Steagall. Right now, you have the wall between investment and commercial banking. There is no wall. Glass-Steagall was the wall. That was taken out during Bill Clinton's presidency, and now they're like, lending, who cares? Let's all take that depositor money and let's gamble it on Wall Street. Let's speculate. That's exactly what he was talking about when he said the rules, banking, getting there, he's talking about banking rules that will get the banks to get lending instead of speculation. That's one of the rules that Hillary Clinton is against putting in place. And now she says her legislation, her plans would be so much stronger. But that's an important piece of legislation that would actually help a lot. Now, it didn't cause the financial crisis, but still, why would you be against someone putting in a rule that prevents a bank from using your money to gamble with? Makes no sense. This guy makes a lot of sense. In fact, he also, part of that was him saying, look, if you have all the money at the top, it's not moving around. It's not going into the economy. You give more people more money, people at the bottom, people in the middle, they get more money, they spend more of it, it moves around. The velocity of money. It's actually a pretty simple concept. Now, here's the thing, right? Wealth, what we have now is neoliberal policies ever since Ronald Reagan. Trickle-down economics. Well, look, it does not trickle down, okay? Look, it makes the economy worse when the rich all have all the money. Now, I'm not against rich people having money. I'm not against rich people being rich. However, I am against all the money being concentrated at the top. Now, strangely enough, that actually puts more of the tax burden on the rich. Well, if they have all the money, they pay all the taxes. That doesn't, I guess it's not necessarily fair in a way. You hear that complaint all the time from rich people. We pay all the taxes. That's because your asses have all the money, right? If you had a more equitable distribution, the tax base would actually lie mostly on the middle class. Look, and it's not as if we're saying they would be taxed more than they are at this point. There would actually just be more people in the middle class to share that distribution, right? And that's what we're talking about. That's what they talk about when they say, let's broaden the tax base. Well, if you give more people more money, if you have it distributed to the poor and the middle class, and you actually create a bigger middle class, well, you're going to increase your tax base without having to raise rates. That's a good thing. And you could do that through economic redistribution. Oh God, I said the horrible words, economic redistribution. I know, right? But look, man, under Sanders, rich people wouldn't pay 90%. And that's another thing that I hear. That actually pay, if you made over $10 million, you pay somewhere around just over 50%, right? Now that's your marginal rate, which means any money over 10 million, that's made per year is taxed at 52. So that's different, right? So rich people would still be rich, but taxing them a little bit more at that very, very top rate would allow that money to go back into the pockets of the poor and the middle class. And they end up spending more of that. Okay? Velocity of money. It's pretty straightforward. It makes a lot of sense. Now, in case you're wondering who this socialist is, right? He's obviously got to be some crazy wide-eyed leftist. Well, Asher Edelman is actually a very wealthy businessman. He has bought and sold distressed companies for about 30 years. Now, he made a name for himself working in high-end investing. He's a Wall Street icon. He's an investment guy, okay? And so he's very, very wealthy. And he's considered one of the godfathers of Wall Street. If the godfather of Wall Street can see the problem with massive income inequality and actually support Sanders, then I think anyone with an ounce of sense and a healthy dose of self-preservation, especially if you're somebody who's that wealthy, would support Sanders. Now, why do I say self-preservation? Because if it keeps going the way that it's going, things are going to get ugly. Things are going to get nasty. Because historically, it always has. It's not a threat. It's what historically happens. When money and wealth concentration gets to a certain point, the knives come out. The guillotines come out. That's what we're trying to avoid. Bernie Sanders is the one guy that is trying to avoid that from happening by returning us into a more equitable system. That's why I say self-preservation. But anyway, if this is because our economy right now is a house of cards. That house would not take much to knock over, especially now since it's so top-heavy. And when something is top-heavy, it's more likely to fall over. What we have to do, and what Bernie Sanders is trying to do, is that we're trying to save the economy from collapsing in on itself. And to do that, we've got to get more money back in the pockets of the poor and middle class so they can spend it to help create jobs. They can increase that demand. That's the whole point. Rich people, I'm sorry, most rich people aren't going to be able to do it on their own. We've got to have someone there in office to help bring this whole system back into balance. Where rich people will still be rich, but we have a thriving middle class again. Bernie Sanders is the only guy who can help steer us back into the right direction of doing that and actually fixing the system. Not just for the rich, not just for the poor, but for everyone.